How's it going, guys? Hope you're doing, and welcome to the second part on making a Draft.js WS GUI, or what you see, what you get, rich text editor. So this is probably the second video tutorial on the series that we have started. A lot of you have put in the comments that you need the actual second part, and I'm really sorry about not putting the second part really quick. So just wanted a lot of people to know about that. So since a lot of you guys are interested in this and want to learn more about Draft.js and how you can use it to build your own Draft.js or your own rich text editor, then you're just gonna go ahead and start or put the second video tutorial, the second part. This part pretty much is gonna have a lot of things. It's gonna cover a lot of putting the inline styles, putting block types, and of course putting custom styles into your Draft.js editor. And of course, we're going to be styling the editor and making it look much better with just giving it a border. We just make it look much more as an editor. And of course, we're going to be creating the toolbar that's going to have the buttons in order to be able to probably just go ahead and put the style your text inside of the rich text editor or manipulate it however you would like to. So simply in here we've got what we've just covered in the last video tutorial. If you really want to get that, you can go ahead and grab it from the GitHub repository that we have created in the last time. So yeah, now hopefully we continue the work and it should pretty much look much better. So we're going to be also using is actually style components. For those of you who doesn't know what are style components, it's probably just a simple way for putting CSS code inside of your JavaScript or React code. So pretty much in here, it's clear you see we can just go ahead and put the button and we style it as a hyperlink or anchor, and we give it actually the actual CSS style. This is going to be resolved as a normal React components. Then we can just go ahead and simply render it as a normal React component. So this is basically what it is. You can just go ahead and embed the CSS style, or much likely, because it's going to be using Sass precompiler or Sass preprocessor, so you can use the Sass code inside of here, and you can just go ahead and render it later on inside of React as a normal React components with the style that you've put in here applied to. You can even have props passed into it and so on and so forth. I think this is the best way you can just go through to create as quick as possible. So putting the CSS style files and stuff, it might be a little bit ugly and takes some time. It's still, there's not much of differences, but this is actually much beneficial when it comes to working faster and quicker and having a reliable source code that you can maintain it over time. So this is basically what we're going to be covering here. Let's go and try and jump into our code. So basically for this one, what we've got actually, as we've created in the last time, just putting the actual editor and the render. And one thing, we need to go inside of the render, and we simply need to go inside of Sass and we grab our style in here, because if you don't include it inside of here, we won't be able to resolve it and actually put it inside of app.css. And also make sure to go inside of the index.html, index.html, and make sure to reference the actual app.css. Otherwise, it won't be referenced inside of here, and the style sheet won't be actually it won't be resolved or something, so it won't work perfectly. This is simply all you need to do. And now for inside of the editor, what it wants, my mistake in the last time, I've put it inside the components, so I'm just going to try to move it out inside of the src, because components are just like primitive things, and you actually not really need to put it inside of the components folder. So from that point, we can just go and put it inside of the src. It can have everything that we need inside of there. So this is basically all you need to do for the actual editor. All the components are going to be inside of there. For the components, I'm going to create another folder. I'm going to name it containers. So it's actually going to be in the containers folder. And for the containers, it's going to be like simple containers like a toolbar, or the actual editor, rich text editor field where you edit text and type text and stuff, or interact with the text. And I'm going to create a folder for putting the actual toolbar in here. So this folder is going to have everything inside of the toolbar components and everything beneath that. So for example, we're going to have an index.jsx, so just for using the React in this case, and this is going to be the main entry point for the toolbar. So it's going to hold the actual components of for the toolbar basically. So this is basically all we need. We can just go ahead and put another thing, which is going to be const. So the constants .gsx. Okay, so there you go. We can just put it like, okay, just leave it as it is in here. It's pretty great and pretty straightforward. We don't really need to do a lot of things. Now inside of the editor, what we want is actually we can just go in and use our style components. So as I've said before, I totally forgot about installing it, so we need to first install it. So npm run or install style-components, and make sure to save it as a dependency. It's going to install the style components, then you can start using it. I really advise you to go ahead and check out the documentation. It is super easy to read and straightforward to the point. So if you're new to this, you can easily go through it and understand what it's doing actually, and use it just like a couple of minutes, like 5 minutes or 10 minutes, and you are ready to go pretty much. So I'm going to go ahead and do import style from style components, and so we can easily go ahead and get started with using it. Now I'm going to put like an editor container right here. In this case, we only have got the actual editor container. I'm going to replace this with, you know, custom editor container per inside of here. So using the style components, of course, I'm just going to use editor container, and I'm going to use style.dev. So clearly seen here, we've got plenty of them, and make sure to not use like normal quotes in here, because you need to use the actual special codes up here, like that uses the literal or the parse text in JavaScript in order to make this work. And remember, this is not actually a function. You just not need to put or actually put the text inside of here and put a semicolon at the end, and everything gonna be working fine as a CSS style. For example, I'm gonna put a min width in here about 700 pixels. It's actually gonna be the main container for the actual editor. So we're gonna have a display or flex, and I'm gonna be having height of basically, I don't know, I'm gonna be fitting the contents of the height. I'm gonna have flex direction to be using column instead of row, and the actual margin top is gonna be 3 AM. So I'm just gonna have such simple margin from the top, and that's basically how it works in this case. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward to the point. Now instead of the style.css in this case, we might also want to just go ahead and put, like, for the roots here, we got the HTML body and everything. We can just put the roots. We need also the roots to have full width and full height of the whole page, and we also need like a custom style, so we can use display, flex display, or flex box, and we can put justify contents in order to make sure that we're gonna horizontally center all the child, including the actual editor container that we're creating, gonna be centered horizontally. So I'm going to use the center. And one final thing, you need to just put the asterisk, which means every single element on the web page is going to have this style applied, which is like we need to change the box sizing to be the border box. So we need just to use border box in this case, because yeah, it's much better for like resizing things and getting the actual height and width of an exact elements rendered in the DOM. So this is basically what you need to do for this case. Now, simple enough, we need to just go ahead and jump into the editor back, and I've got a couple of styles actually imported, I've created already, so I'm not going to go through all of them and create them, so I'm just going to go ahead and copy paste them. If you really want to get all of the styles, of course, you can go ahead and just do the GitHub repository and grab them, or just to follow along in here, so you can just go and put them. Here we got another editor container, and there's actually one single thing, there's actually another container. It is the actual editor wrapper, sort of this. So actually the editor wrapper, we got the editor container, which has a box shadow, a background color of white, and some padding inside of it, and that's basically it. So this is going to hold the actual editor container where we type things, and this is going to wrap the whole editor, including the toolbar, and that's what we're going to create in a second. So in this case, what we're going to probably do, simply here, instead of the container, I'm going to use the editor wrapper, just to wrap everything up. Okay, so basic enough in here. I'm gonna have like the draft editor, which is already in there, and I'm gonna just wrapping it using the actual editor container that I've created. So this is gonna work as a wrapper to wrap everything up and make it look much better. And just left, we're gonna go ahead and use the toolbar inside of here in order to make everything looks pretty fine. So simple enough. This is basically all we need to do in this case. Now we're just gonna jump into the toolbar. Now for the toolbar, I'm gonna be creating actually a really interesting toolbar for doing everything up. So here we got the index, and if you take a look back in our code, it's clearly seen here it is centered, but we still have got nothing applied to it, no borders or anything like that. So it's kind of not really working as we expected it to be, but yeah, we will cover everything up, just working perfectly as it is. So here we got the editor container, and hopefully I did not refresh or something. So yeah, we're just going to use the Webpack watch. So yeah, make sure to run the watch to make sure that everything gets transpiled or compiled correctly in order to work with it perfectly. So this is basically all you need to care about. So just wait for this for a second to run up and make sure that it's running perfectly. There we go. Now after we get in it, we can just go and refresh. There we go. We got the container in here, and we can just start typing on it. You can just take it as normal as it is, and this is actually the container of the code. Now we need to put another toolbar on top of this, which can hold the actual buttons of where we can interact with the actual editor and apply some styles and so on and so forth. So this is basically what we need to do in this case. We can jump back into the actual index.jsx, which is basically for that. So I'm going to just start by putting React. So we need to include React real quick. And we need also to import styles. So I'm just going to do style from style components. And that's basically what it is for now. I'm going to create another container which is going to hold the toolbar container. But for now, we can just going to do export defaults the toolbar class. Okay. Which basically extends React.components. Alright, I'm going to have render method, which simply renders a specific container. Now I'm going to use the style components in order to create a container for this, which I already did, as I've said, because it's CSS style, so I've just put it there. So it has a flex box, some padding, a minimum width of 48 or height of 48 pixels, and some borders, plus some just box shadowing to make it look much better and like floating on the actual web page to make it just look an elegant thing and more like a toolbar happening of a rich text editor. So here we're going to be returning the actual toolbar container. So the actual container is going to contain everything inside of that, and we've got three main things to render in a toolbar. We got the inline styles, which basically allows, if you're familiar with rich text editors, you can apply bold style, or you can apply italic style, or underline, or stroke, or anything like that. All of those are like categorized inside of or under the category of inline style. So they applied inside of the line or in line with other concepts or with other styles. So it doesn't really need a block or a new line in order to create it. On the other hand, we got the second type, which are block types. So they need a depending or like a brand new block, which is a new line to render things up. And this is basically like an ordered list or ordered list, or something like headers like h1, h2, h3, which depends on what you need. And of course, this is gonna just tells or decides which is the size of the actual text, like high text size or anything like that. So this is basically what it is. And we got the final thing, which are custom styles, and that depends on you and how you want to apply the styles. Like you want to add a color picker to your rich text editor or something like this, you can apply it throughout the custom styles. So I'm just going to try to put first the inline styles to see how everything's going to be working, and we can clearly understand what is going on perfectly. So I'm going to be creating here instead of toolbar. First, I'm going to be creating another file, and I'm going to hold common things inside of this file. So I'm just going to have common.js. It's going to have some common components that we're going to be using, or shared components going to be using among all of the toolbar subcomponents. And I'm going to be creating another file as well. It's going to hold the inline style file. So we're going to be inline style.jsx. And this one is actually going to be the renderer, which renders the inline style on the actual toolbar and all the buttons, and holds the interaction, holds the events that we need, and so on and so forth. So that's going to try to do for the inline style. I'm going to do npr import React from React again. And just gonna simply here, we're gonna export a function. So this function is gonna be render inline styles, and the render inline style takes up props, of course, as any React component takes the props. We can just go in and like decode from the props. What we need exactly is actually two things. We need the editor state, which pretty much holds the current editor state, and we need the function or the method that allows us to update this editor state on the main editor's state. So here inside of the editor, we are actually inside the state, we are holding the editor state. So we need like this method to be passed throughout the props in order to be able to call the set state, and we can just pass it in the new state or the new editor state that we want to apply. So I'm just going to hold the reference of this function that we're going to be passing in later on. So update editor state, and it's going to be like using the ES6 constructor or destructure syntax from the props, simply what it is. Now for this one, I'm going to be returning simple things. We're going to be returning a container, and as I've said before, we're going to be using or putting everything inside of the common.js. So this common.js is going to have like shared components that we're going to be using among everything else. So I'm going to have a container, so simply using style, of course. Just going to copy paste them, and of course just going to do import style from style components, and simple as that. So this component just holds things up, which has like a display flex and a margin to the right in order to have some margin between the actual toolbar items and so on and so forth. So this is basically what we need. We also need another thing, which is a really important one, which is the toolbar item. So each item needs to be rendered with an icon or with a text, or at least just like a symbol or something like this. So I already created the style of this, quite a little bit long for it to read and stuff, but this is basically what it shows. So there's actually a toolbar item style.dev, and actually has some props in order to depend on that. If it is active, we can show like an active state. If have hover over it, we also need to show like different states and so on and so forth. So this is basically what we need, and make sure to export it in order to be able to use it. Now instead of the inline styles, I'm just going to do import container, and I'm going to be importing toolbar item, and it's going to be imported from the actual common.js. So I'm just going to do common. Then we can simply just go in down here, we can do return, and we're going to return the actual container which holds the current inline styles we're going to be rendering. Of course, the inline style is going to be like resolved or something from the const file, so we can just go ahead and declare all of them inside of an array, and each inline style or each toolbar item is going to be an object with information like the label, the style that we're going to apply, and like an optional icon. If you really want to like render up an icon specifically for this inline styles, you can pass it in through. So in this case, I'm going to just go ahead and go through the inline styles from here. So go inside of the const, and as I've said, for the const, we're going to be creating all the inline styles. So I'm going to do const inline styles, and it's going to be simply an array. So here we got an object, like we got the label, and for this, for example, going to be bold. The style we're going to be applying is going to be bold, all of it uppercase, because this is how Draft.js recognizes the syntax, and we want to apply bold. So we recognize as bold or uppercase because it's a predefined thing inside of the Draft.js inline style system. So we don't really need to apply it customly because it knows how it works perfectly. And we can apply an icon. Now, how we can go ahead and grab icons? And likely we got a package which is the font awesome, and we're not going to use the regular font awesome actually, because we're going to be using React font awesome, which is the React's like embedding or the React components for the font awesome, and you can go ahead and use it in your code with a really simple interface. So all you simply need to do is just go ahead and install npm for awesome SVG core, the SVG solid icons, and the React font awesome. So I already did install all of those, so make sure to go and just copy all of these, install each one of those, and everything's going to be working pretty much fine for you. Now for this to work perfectly, what we need is we need a couple of things. We need to import first the actual React font awesome. So I'm going to do font awesome icon, and we're going to just importing it from React font awesome for awesome. So let me grab that. So the React font awesome, this is simply what you need to do. And from the free solid SVG icons, you can import any icons you pretty much want, like the font bold, which is completely free to use from the font awesome, and the free solid SVG icons. Basically, that you can import any icons you find inside of the font awesome website, and you can use it clearly here. Now you can use the components, and you can render it as a simple React component. And here we pass in a prop, which is the icon, and it takes the actual icon that we want to render. And as simple as that, everything's going to be working pretty much fine. You can have multiple things in here. We can add another one. We can add the italic, and the italic here, of course, again, it's all uppercase. And we can add, for example, the fat italic for some reason. We can go ahead and import it, and there you go. It works pretty damn cool and pretty much fine without any issues. Now we can do export, and we can simply just go ahead and export everything up we can go ahead and use it later on. So we can export the inline styles, and they can go ahead and use it from this file. So we're going to import inline styles, everything, all arrays, so we can loop through the actual array and render each one of these. So we're just going to do import reacts from file styles and constants, so we can get the inline styles, and here we can just go and throw up the loop, and we can render each one dependently. So I'm going to use inline styles. I'm going to use the map method inside of arrays. I'm going to get the item and the actual index of it on the array. Going to be passed inside of the map item, and here is simply each time going to be returning a toolbar item. So for the toolbar item, I'm going to have a couple of things like is active, which I already defined. If you take a look on the toolbar item in this case, take a look on the com.js, here for the toolbar item we got is active. If it is active, we're going to apply a custom style which shows that this is currently the style, it's being active. Otherwise we're just going to go ahead and hide up the style of the array. So I'm going to just do is active, and for this active I'm going to use a specific method, but for now simply what I'm going to do is false. And I'm going to have a key, and this is actually the React key to render up like multiple childs on an array. You need to put the key in order to identify each child as a unique key, and in order to make React like renders this pretty quickly and does not have any issues with it, you need to provide the key, and each element has its own unique key. For the uniqueness, I'm going to use the actual item label. So I'm going to do item, and remember the item has actually a label, and inside of the item I'm going to be putting like alongside of it just a dash, and I'm going to put the actual index of the item. So each item has its own label, and we're going to put the index on the array of this item. Simple enough. This is basically what we need to do. We can just go and have like an onClick method which we'll create in a second. Now we can go and render the icon. If the icon persists, we're going to render it first. Otherwise, if it doesn't, we're just going to simply put the actual label, and simple as that. So this is basically what the renderer looks like, and nothing is really complicated or anything like that. It is pretty simple and pretty straight to the point. Now we can just go and do is simply in here, it should work pretty much fine if we try to go ahead and put it inside of the index.jsx, here the toolbar container, and we could do like render inline styles, and it should work. Of course, inside of here you can go ahead and pass in the editor state, which you need from the props, of course. So we can just go and do like a destructure in here, editor state, and update editor state. Okay, and we can get rid from the props, of course. That's going to be passed throughout this. I'm going to be putting the editor state in here, and of course I'm going to be putting the update editor state again in order to pass it into the actual, the render inline styles, so we can clearly go ahead and use them here to update the style and everything. Now if we jump back into the editor, now whenever we are actually going to be rendering the toolbar, which going to be rendered up here, the toolbar, and we need to pass in some props like the update editor state, which has this update editor state, and make sure to bind the current context, otherwise it won't recognize the actual this that you're using inside of the actual method. This won't be undefined unless you provide the bind before passing it as a prop. And of course make sure to put the editor state there, and we can do like just simply this the editor state. Simple enough. This is all you need to do for this case, for putting it inside of the toolbar and everything. I'm just going to save this real quick, and everything should be looking pretty much fine. This is going to try to simply see everything in our editor in here, and we might be using some code. So instead of the const, we got like React as undefined, so we can just import React real quick, because in these Reacts is we're using or rendering a component. So I'm going to do import React from React. Again, we refresh that, and there we go. And there we go. Now we got both the icons are being rendered and everything, and if you hover over any of these, we're gonna get the actual style applied and everything. Got these over effects, and everything is looking pretty much fine. Now it looks much better and looks much more as an editor with all the icons and the toolbar items and stuff. But we still need that we want to click in this, we want to apply the italic, and we want to just get the actual active state of it or the bold state of it, and so on and so forth. So for this one, we need to jump back into the inline style, and we can have like a specific method for this one. What the method is going to be doing is actually going to do applying the style. So I'm going to do a method named apply style. And for the apply style, it's going to take the style that we want to apply, the style that we have just put inside the cons. So remember, we put style in here. So in this case, what we can do update picture state, and I'm going to use reach utils. And the reach utils in here, we need to import it from the actual Draft.js because it's actually a separate library that Draft.js provides with us in order to be able to manipulate the editor state to apply some inline styles as the bold and as the italic, or apply other block styles like the headers, H1, H2, and so on and so forth. So we need to grab this from the main thing, or from the main Draft.js library. We can just go and do Draft.js, and here inside of it, what we can just do like apply, or much more like toggle inline style, and we can just pass it in this style. And the reason I'm putting integer update editor state in here, because this method or this function, because it's actually a static function, is going to be returning a new editor state with the applied style that we have passed through as an argument in here. So everything's going to be put inside of that, and a new editor state is going to be like returning from this like block of code or this function, and we want to update the editor state in order to like re-render everything and get the style applied correctly. So simple enough. And of course, the next thing we're going to cover, we're going to create another method to check if it is active or not. And we're going to have like a method name is active, and this method is going to take actually the current style that we want to check. So we check for this, and we're going to have like const. We're going to get the current style, and then we check if the style is actually under the cursor or not. So I'm going to use the editor state we have got, and I'm going to get the current inline style. So if you're confused a little bit with this, all of these methods and stuff, like the get inline style method inside the editor state, or the reach utils, and so on and so forth, they are actually including the documentations of Draft.js. So you might go ahead and jump into the documentations, read more about it in order to understand what each function does specifically, and everything, like more details about it in order to understand what is going on behind the scenes. So this is basically all we need to do in this case. I'm just going to go ahead and do like current style, and we're just going to be returning has style. So this method checks if a style is actually under or among the list of styles. It's actually going to be an array, or much more like a map. So if you're familiar with JavaScript maps, this is actually a JavaScript map, and we're going to use the has method to check if the current style or the current string basically is among all of the list of this map. Otherwise it's not. So we're just going to return true or false to check for this. So here's simply what I'm going to do. I'm going to call the is active, and I'm going to be passing in the item dot style. Simple enough. And make sure to also call the apply style in here. So I'm going to do onClick. So whenever we click this, what we want to do is actually just do apply style. And for the apply style, what we want to do is just going to run the method. And this one also needs to be running. So we're going to run the method, execute it, or call the method, and we pass in the item dot style. Simple enough. This is basically all we need to be current of doing. And now whenever we click the actual item, if you refresh that, Scuracy says for some reason it says just it is completely active. So yeah, there should be some issue about that, and we can just go ahead and get rid of the method that's being executed and everything. We don't really need that. Okay, there you go. Now it should work. Now if we try to type like hello world or anything like this, we just go and like select the word. You need to select something first, and you just go to the bold. Actually, we're not getting that applied, but yeah, for some reason this is not working perfectly as we expect it to be. So it says get selection is not a function. And I completely forgot about adding the actual editor state in here. So just simply do editor state. Make sure to pass it in as the first argument. So simple as that. And yeah, so the first argument is going to be the editor state, and the second one is going to be the style. And it's going to return a new, like, immutable editor state. It's just going to create an instance of it, a clone of it. It's not going to mutate the actual instance because it uses the immutable paradigm of Facebook's immutable.js. So that's how it works in this case. So we can just save it, and we might refresh that. So we can put some text, like, as I've said, hello world or something, and you can select word. You click it, as clearly you see it gets bold, and while the cursor inside of it, clearly you see it's being selected as active. And if you move out of it, it's going to just get out of the active state of this bold because this text isn't bold anymore. If you get back into it, clearly you see it shows that perfectly. So this is exactly what we wanted. If we try to select this and apply italic to, clearly see the text changed, and now we got the italic as active. We can just put italic active in this case, and bold and everything active in lowercase. It will work perfectly as you might want it perfectly to be. So you can add more styles in here, like the bare minimum styles available on Nest.js or pretty much the Draft.js. So you can copy paste this, and for example, you can put underline and underline as uppercase. And of course, for the actual icon, you can just put the underline icon. Yeah, we need to include this in here. So underline. Could save it, and we should get the underline in here. If you just select something, you put an underline inside of it, or like hello, security, select everything, put italic, plenty of things, and so on and so forth. So you might also want to just, there's actually some issues in here when you try to do like selection out of range or something, but it's not really that much of exceptions that needs to be awkward. You can caught the exception, or you can catch it and of course manipulate it how you want, but that's not a really big deal thing. So this is basically how you put the inline styles and everything. I know that much tutorial that might have been a little bit longer than the last one, but I mean, I've covered a lot of things in here, like the inline styles and stuff. In the next one, which is hopefully gonna be next week or something like this, a really close thing, we're gonna just cover the custom styles and the block types and how you can apply them. Now we've got the bare fundamentals on how you can create the toolbar and everything and link together, so we can just gonna make the editor look much better. And of course we can add some like a resizing button in here to resize the editor and so on and so forth. So catch you all guys, thanks for watching. I really hope you guys have enjoyed this. Put your thoughts in the comments below if you really like this tutorial and what you really want from me to like put in the next video tutorials, like the features I'm going to cover in this editor and so on and so forth, or things that I need to explain about Draft.js that you really need to understand, guys. Thank you guys for watching this set again. Hopefully guys, you've enjoyed this video tutorial, or you enjoyed the Draft.js making like a rich text editor series. If you really like this series, make sure I'm gonna give you like create another cool series as this one and out of the box or stuff like this. So as I said, see you all guys hopefully in the next video tutorial.